In 2020, I was almost arrested in Ukraine whenever I was actually living there. So today is another story time, just a raw, uncut video. So let's take it all the way back to why I ended up in Ukraine in the first place. So I was living in Bali, but I kind of got tired of it after a year or so. So I wanted to start traveling, and the first country I decided to travel to was Scotland. So I go to Scotland, I'm living there for a month, and the goal was to go country to country. I was going to go all through Europe, and then I was gonna go to like Nepal, Thailand, and then make my way back to Bali. But I go to Ukraine. This was the first country I wanted to go to. It's always been on my list, man. And by the way, Ukraine is one of the coolest countries I've been to. I would easily put it in the top 5 of all the countries I've visited. I freaking love Ukraine, man. It's cool. Like the people, I was living right along the Dead Sea. It was super dope. But I ended up traveling in there at the end of February 2020. Now, if you're familiar with how this is gonna go, essentially, I plan to stay there for about a month, and then I was going to go to Nepal next. So I'm there for the first month, and then middle of March, obviously, everybody gets the announcement of COVID. Everything's shutting down, the airports are shutting down, so now I am stuck in the Ukraine. And everyone kept saying, oh, it's just a week shutdown, everything's going to be available next week. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to chill here. There's no issues. I'm just going to chill in the Ukraine. First of all, I start off just in a regular Airbnb, nothing fancy. It was very boring. But then, because of COVID, all the Airbnb prices started slashing. So there was this $3,000 apartment that's now cut down to $1,000 a month, right along the Black Sea. It was beautiful. Everything was gold, had all this beautiful artwork. So I booked this one. I booked a really nice Airbnb because during COVID, everything's discounted. And I'm staying there. I stayed there for 4 to 6 months. I forget the exact amount of time, but it's owned by this Ukrainian woman. And this Ukrainian woman, she was acting all sweet to me the entire time, calling me an angel. Oh, I'm so grateful for you renting my place, blah, blah, blah. Talking about America, everything, man. And I'm there for 4 to 6 months, and literally all I do is work. This was a time in my life whenever I was trying to build up my fitness business. I did nothing but work. Everything was still shut down, so I wasn't meeting with girls, I wasn't meeting with friends. I was just staying up all night until 6 a.m. I'd wake up, I'd work, and just work until 6 a.m. every single day. And this is what I did to actually start my business, to get it off the ground to begin with. But I was doing that the whole time, which that's going to come in a little bit in the future. So I'm staying there this whole time. And then now everything starts opening up. Like the beginning of summer, June, July, everything slowly starts opening up. So now this woman's like, all right, now I want you to pay $3,000 a month for the rent. So obviously I'm like, no, I'm not going to pay that. I'm just going to move out instead. So I guess she didn't like this very much. By the way, guys, COVID was still very much happening. Like, you couldn't travel to any countries. Nobody could come into Ukraine. So the only people renting this apartment would be other Ukrainians, and they don't want to travel around the country at this time. So on the day that I'm actually checking out, she burst through the door. I have all my stuff by the door. She burst through the door. No expectations, anything. She's been super cool this entire time. She burst through the door. She looks at the sink specifically, and it's a ceramic sink. And she's saying I scratched the sink. I'm like, bro, it's a sink. You can't scratch a sink. Any scratches, it's just normal wear and tear. And then she's going around the apartment saying I destroyed it. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna take this. And then all of a sudden, she gets her phone out and she starts calling the Ukrainian police saying that I destroyed her apartment. Now, keep in mind, I've not done anything, man. I don't smoke, I don't drink. All I have been doing is working. There's nothing wrong with the apartment other than just typical wear and tear that you would get in an apartment after 4 to 6 months with no cleaning services, anything. And so obviously once she starts calling the cops, I dip, man. I'm not staying there. I'm in Ukraine, I'm American, I'm not gonna end up in a Ukrainian prison. So I start running, I got cellular internet on my phone, so whenever I'm on the run, I book an Airbnb maybe a mile away. So I don't get a taxi, anything, man. I literally just have all my stuff and I'm booking it to the next Airbnb as fast as possible. Now I make it to the next Airbnb, and I kid you not, I get there comfortably. The host is so cool, he's super chill. Maybe 30 minutes later, this Ukrainian guy comes banging on my door, and he just starts yelling in Russian. He's just like, suka, no homo, suka la, pizdits. No clue what he's saying. And I'm like, dude, what are you trying to say? I have no clue what this is. And he's a security guard at the new building. And I think I'm about to get arrested. I'm like, okay, this guy's here to take me in. I'm in trouble now. And then I end up calling my host, and he speaks very good English. He ends up saying, there's nothing wrong. So I'm like, okay. I just kind of blow it off. And then nothing else really happens after that. But the Ukrainian woman does leave a review. She goes to Airbnb and she tells Airbnb that I had all these loose women inside the apartment. I was doing all these drugs. I was drinking. I was just smoking cigarettes left and right, throwing them all over the apartment. I flooded the entire bathroom. Like, she wrote this full-blown story of the most dramatic thing you've ever seen. And Airbnb, because it was during COVID, they didn't even look at it. They probably just saw this essay and they're like, nah, this is bullshit. So she put that in. I didn't respond. Airbnb didn't respond. So nothing else happened. And then after that month of that next Airbnb, I left that city and went to a new city, Lviv. The first city I was in, Odessa, right on the Black Sea. Super gorgeous. I was there just walking, doing my long walks, workouts along the sea. It was really great. And then I moved to Lviv. Really cool city as well, man. But that's essentially the story of when I almost got arrested in Ukraine. Now, I've got tons of really cool stories just from traveling all over the world. Like I always tell you guys, like, having stories that you can tell people, tell girls whenever you're on dates, really boosts your SMV. Like, if you can say, oh, I've been to this country, I did this, I did this, I did this. It makes you seem a lot more interesting, man. I mean, so many guys, they're on a date and they can't even say anything cool about their lives because there is nothing cool. They've stayed in their same hometown. They don't do anything crazy. What's crazy to them is getting messed up with their boys on a Saturday night at a really cringy just nightclub in their hometown with maybe 20 people in there, man. It's not very impressive. So if you want to have cool stories, I highly advocate traveling around the world, finding a way to create an online business, because I think an online business is much more efficient nowadays than an in-person business. Like if I were to start a gym, anything like this, for example, there's like an 80% chance of that failing. But if you start an online business, you know exactly what you're doing step by step. It's actually very difficult to fail as long as you do not give up, because the overhead is much cheaper to actually start an online business. So that's kind of the message of today, man. You need more stories. You need to be more interesting. That's my story of when I almost got arrested in Ukraine. I've got tons of much crazier stories that will never end up on YouTube or anybody will ever know about it other than maybe a couple very close people. That's it, man. I love you with all my heart. Peace.